Okay, I'm going to harp on about drums again, but this week I'm going to show you how to fake drum rooms. Let's dig in. So if you've watched my channel, you'll know that I am obsessed with recording drums. I can't help it, it's just a massive part of what it is that I do. I've long believed that the secret to great records is great drums. If you get your drums right, everything else just falls into place. But before I get into it, like, subscribe, comment, share. It's really helpful. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes no time at all. I'd be really grateful if you could do it. So one of the biggest game changers for me was understanding the importance of drum rooms and drum ambience. This is the thing that's going to make your record sound brilliant. I just can't mix a great record without having a drum room there. It ties it together, it adds vibe, it adds energy. But every now and again, I get sent sessions that don't have drum rooms. And that kind of annoys me, so I've got to try and figure out a strategy to kind of fix it. So why would I not have drum rooms included? Well, it's really simple. Some people just don't have the facilities to do it. If you're using an 8-channel interface and you're miking up your kick, your snare, your toms, your hats and your overheads, there's quite often no inputs left for recording ambience. And also maybe you don't have enough mics to do that either. Or maybe you're just in a room that doesn't have very much ambience. So in that case, I need to kind of fake it. I need to try and create the illusion of that drum kit having been recorded in a big ambient space, just like all the records I love. Remember, I love records by a guy called Brendan O'Brien, and he's massively into drum ambience. Listen to the song Give It Away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's so much room in it, and I fucking love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 strategies to create or fake a drum room. I'm going to take a session I've recorded that has only 8 inputs. It's got a kick, a snare top, snare bottom, 2 toms, a hat and 2 overheads, and absolutely no ambient mics whatsoever. And whilst it sounds pretty good on its own, it's just lacking that energy and that vibe that having a drum room mic really does. In fact, multiple drum room mics, to be honest with you. The first method is the most basic method, and that is just using a reverb plugin. Just sending your shells into a reverb and seeing how it goes. The second one's a little bit more interesting. I actually adapted that from a video I saw with Stephen Slate years ago on how to fake a drum room, basically by using your overheads. And then the third method is by using samples. So I've taken samples of room sounds and I've blended them in. So why don't we check them out? So here's the first one, using a reverb. So this is our drum session. We've got 8 tracks, kick, snare top, snare bottom, 2 toms, hats and 2 overheads. So definitely something that could be really easily achieved at home, and it sounds a little like this. So it sounds fine, it's super clean and clear, which is great. However, it is totally lacking vibe. So let's have a look at our first strategy for trying to make this sound a bit bigger and better. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply use reverb first of all. So what I've got is 7th Heaven Professional. I've got it set to a large wooden room. Let's have a listen to it. It sounds pretty good, but it basically just sounds like a reverb plugin. Now, here's something that I've done a little extra, is I have put an 1176 on the reverb return with all buttons in. So what it does is it brings the reverb forward and a bit more in your face. Without it, it sounds like this. And with it, it sounds like this. So it really helps kind of bring that to the forefront. Let's toggle it on and off. We'll start with it off. So it's useful, but it's boring. I think that's the thing I don't like about it. It just sounds like a reverb plugin. It doesn't really sound like a room. It's nice, it's a nice reverb, but there's definitely something missing. So yeah, that was okay, but let's look at number 2. Let's kick it up a notch and create a fake room off our overheads. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up a send from the hats and the overheads, and I'm sending it into this aux track here, which I've labeled fake. So I've done a few different things here. First of all, using a Neve style EQ, I've added a shit ton of low frequencies, 63 Hz. I've added 10 dB. I've taken out a little bit of the kind of mid-range at about 500-ish there. And then I've added a tiny little bit of a shelf at 3K. After that, I've moved on to a mag and I've added more sub, more lows, and then a little bit of this 2.5K here, which is really just trying to bring out the snare a little bit. Next up, I'm using this brilliant plugin from Waves. It's the CLA Epic. I'm a big Chris Lord-Alge fan, if you didn't know. And I've got this set to the Room 5. And note that I haven't got the mix up full. I've brought it back to about 70% there. Next up, the SSL bus compressor. So ratio of 4, attack pretty medium, release pretty fast, and I've got my threshold set. I'm not getting a whole heap of gain reduction, and then I'm using some makeup gain. The important thing is that I've used this filter at the bottom, so basically it is not reacting to anything under 90 Hertz. So remember that I've boosted a whole shit ton of low frequencies in this, and I don't want the compressor reacting to that. And then last in my chain is this EQ here, and what I've done is I've added a little bit of stereo width, I've done a little bit of mono at 60 Hertz and under, and then I've taken out a tiny little bit of kind of low frequencies just to kind of clean it up a little bit. So let's hear how it sounds. So that sounds a lot more natural, so let's toggle it on and off. It definitely feels more like a room mic. Let's adjust the balance of the return. I think it was pretty good where it was. So the big issue for me here is the cymbals. When you've got a loud crash or a loud hi-hat, then because we're sending from the overheads, you really hear that. So sometimes you might need to do something like soothe or a de-esser to try and control that. And you can really hear that when you turn up the return. So yeah, it definitely sounds natural, but you have to be mindful of that crash cymbal or any loud cymbals because it is going to really be in your face. Okay, that was certainly better and a bit more natural. Let's check out the third and final one, which is using samples of a room. So just to clarify, what we have is a kick with the room samples and a snare with the room samples. Let's check it out. So I'm going to open this routing folder and show you what I've done here. So I've duplicated the kick, the snare and the overheads, and I've opened up trigger and I've brought in some samples from a room. Now these room samples come from the Modern Massive by GGD. I think the studio they used for this was Middle Farm, which sounds really good. And on the kick and snare I've got a far room and a mono room. So let's listen to it on the kick. So that's the far room, and that's the mono room. The mono room's got a lot more low end. And moving on to the snare, the far room sounds like this, and the mono room sounds like this. Now, what I've had to do here is bring in a tiny little bit of the overheads just to tie this together, because without it having just samples of the kick and snare, it just sounds a little bit odd. So this really does, as I say, tie it together a little bit. Now, on the folder track, I've got a little tiny bit of Devil Lock just to kind of dirty this up a little bit. And then I've also got a tiny little bit of EQ, so I've taken out a little bit of 1.6K. And I've boosted a little bit of 130. Again, just try to kind of tie this together. So let's listen to it. I mean, that sounds really, really good actually. Let's toggle it on and off. That sounds quite natural as well. When you bring it up in the mix though, it starts to get quite unnatural. Let's do that. That is a lovely room sample, to be fair, and it's a lovely room. Middle Farm is one of my favourite drum rooms, actually. I think it sounds fantastic. So again, let's toggle it on and off. Alright, so let's do a comparison of all three side by side. So, the reverb plugin on its own. So all three of them sound wildly different, and I guess you're going to have to decide which one's best for you. Now, let's do something for shits and giggles. Put them all in, see what happens. Now that's interesting. I wasn't expecting it to sound so good, if I'm honest. Right, let's bring the returns down a little bit. That is very interesting, actually. I'm going to group these so I can toggle them on and off. And let's experiment with the level of the return. Well, that's pretty rubbish. I think that sounds actually really good. Let's toggle them on and off again. Well, every day's a school day for me as well. Okay, so that was interesting. That was a genuine mistake at the end. I didn't expect for that to sound so good with all three methods going at the same time. I kind of put that in there because I thought it would be ridiculous and a bit of a laugh, but do you know what? As I said, every day's a school day. That sounded really fucking cool and very usable. So, do you know what? I might end up doing that in the future. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. Remember, if you need drum rooms, there is a way to do it without actually capturing it. I would always prefer to have the real thing, but I can fake it and get pretty good results. And remember, please like, subscribe, comment, share. It's free, it's fast, and it really fucking helps. And if this is a game changer for you and you want to use this, great. Maybe buy me a wee coffee in the link below. I really like coffee. I've only had one coffee. Who's going to get me up to 2 coffees? Come on. See you next week. Cheers.